Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of AI Horizons with me, Jonathan Blaber, Head of AI Group Practice for Eden Smith. Today we've got a really exciting episode for all of you SMEs out there that are trying to, think about adopting AI in one shape or form. How do we compete with the big guys? How do we even compete with, the smaller to medium enterprises too, right? So we have someone to talk about some real good topics around SMEs. He has over 25 years of experience in consulting, product development, and data-driven transformation. He's held roles including head of AI and data at Argon and Co. He's a former chief innovation officer at Forestreet, where he built an award-winning market intelligence platform. So really pleased to have Bryan Johnson on this show today. So welcome, Bryan.
Hi, Jonathan. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure. I know you're a busy guy, so thanks for sparing some time. I always like to start the episode with just a short intro on you. I mean, everyone's really curious about people's journeys and how they got to where they are. So, what's your journey, Bryan?
My journey has been one of somewhat lucky, and also just staying in front of whatever's coming next. So I've been a data guy for 25 years, and throughout that journey, I've moved from being a data warehouse architect to business intelligence to analytics to advanced analytics to data science to machine learning, and then towards AI, and finally now generative AI. So um, I've spent my career just making sure that I'm helping my clients with the absolute latest technologies. And that right now means a combination of using generative AI and sort of agentic automation platforms, which we can talk about what that means in practice. But that's what 2025 holds.
So you've seen it all, right? So you've come from that, analytics, engineering, and now into this kind of AI world. So I'm guessing you've seen a lot of change.
Seen a lot of change and a lot of things that stay the same. A lot of it, unfortunately, a lot of businesses still struggle with their fundamentals of data and data management. And I've been running data strategies for 20 plus years, and I'm saying the same things about managing data that I was, in the early 2000s. But there's a market change that we're now seeing in kind of the ability for companies and in particular SMEs to leverage some of this advanced technology and kind of level the playing field a bit around kind of the data and then how to use it and make sense of it.
Yeah, I think that's so important as well. I think everyone, no matter how big your business is, I think everyone, needs to have that chance to compete, right? And that kind of guess brings us nicely onto the topics of conversation today, to really talk about AI transformation for SMEs. So I'd love to kind of just dig a bit deeper on that. I guess a question to you, how can SMEs kind of embark on this AI transformation journey?
I mean, the first thing that we should talk about is I think just putting it in context and what an SME is typically struggling with. A lot of my clients in that sort of size space are struggling just with bandwidth within their IT teams. And they have been putting together kind of responsive IT organizations, but rarely do they have kind of a chief data officer, for example. And even less common is kind of the hiring a head of AI. Whereas you see kind of large enterprises have hired their first head of AI probably 18 months ago, and have had a chief data officer probably for about 10 years. So that context is important because you kind of look at how do we make sense of all these opportunities when we're fighting fires. And so the first kind of point that SMEs are kind of grappling with is how do we just get AI to our staff? We saw the launch of ChatGPT in November 2022. We also saw the first emails come out shortly thereafter, first part of 2023 that says, please don't use ChatGPT. And a lot of organizations haven't really responded to the next email to come out of that, which is, well, you don't use the free version, instead use this. So kind of the first part of the journey is providing staff with the ability to use AI in a safe, secure, and just organized way, and giving them the training, and importantly, the encouragement and support. So that's kind of like that's like level one on this kind of SME roadmap for AI. Second is what I call desktop AI. Microsoft Copilot is at the forefront of desktop AI, although a lot of SMEs are on Google Workspaces, and Google Gemini is part of that. So you can look at, can we use AI in the context of our documents and our document creation? I think generally everyone is underwhelmed with Microsoft Copilot, particularly when it comes to the biggies of PowerPoint and Excel. It's getting better, but we haven't hit the holy grail of, give me a Excel document, or give me this, presentation that actually, or the slide that actually looks good. But that is kind of the next stepping stone that a lot of organizations are taking. And then what's really interesting is kind of automations. What I call sort of soft process automation. So these processes that are softer in nature, they're not purely transactional. They do require some human intervention, some human intuition, some experience. And these are the processes that oftentimes are done in Excel, with a combination of Outlook and other kind of office tools. But we never got around as a world to automating them, because it's just hard. It requires a lot of intuition and just experience. And this is where the robotic process automation, the RPA tools of the past, couldn't have worked, even if SMEs could really spend the time and effort to put in RPA. But this is a opportunity to kind of skip over that automation journey and start to automate the worst parts of what your organization does. And that's where I'm spending a lot of my time, is helping organizations kind of on levels 1 and 2. How do we adopt AI generally, but also what are our steps that we can take to start to automate these softer processes.
Sure. I think if I'm in a position of an owner, founder of an SME, I think the first thing I'm thinking about is budget, right? How much is this going to cost me? And then the second thing is, what's the return on investment? And I know it's really hard to tell at the moment, but I mean, if you from your experience, wisdom, how would you kind of advise on those two topics?
That's obviously the first concern, and no matter what you do or who you do it with, you need to embark on understanding what the ROI is going to be and pick our high ROI use cases. Luckily, most companies don't have a shortage of things that kind of, if you had a magic wand, let's solve this problem. And increasingly, what we're seeing is are pieces of technology that help bridge the gap between kind of having to build it purely yourself and being able to kind of use low code or simple solutions. So as an example, one of my clients is in the oil and gas space, and they produce reports around drilling of wells. And so this is a very manual process. There's a team out in India, plus very skilled geotechnical engineers who spent a long time at university to understand what different drill depths and boring hole dimensions mean. But churning through these reports is not particularly value added. So you walk in and say, what's the worst part of what you do? Where's your magic wand? It's well, every week we have to spend literally all day going through this report, and line by line changing the wording from the non-standard wording to the BSI standard wording on this data. You're looking at, well, that's one we can tackle. In the old world, that would have been a requirements capture session followed by technical deep dive, some solution architecture, and then costing and moving it offshore, and eventually potentially a POC delivery 2 months later. In the modern kind of what we have available now is we can solve that problem in an afternoon. And we do that because we're able to use two things. One, we're using kind of pre-built automation platform. So, there's a platform called DeFi or Diffy, depending on how you pronounce it, DIFY. There's many others. There's Langflow, N8N, and others. These are open source technologies that allow you to build in a low code or no code environment workflows. So between the technical team and the in-business users, the ones who wish they had a magic wand, we're able to prototype and frankly pilot in an afternoon. And so that report is one where we're able to show actually this is the AI working in a matter of 2 or 3 hours.
And you also, I guess, you in this scenario here, you wouldn't need to get much or need to do much convincing to the user, because you're saving them that day of the low, the laborious task, and that's what AI is for, right?
Yeah, and it's a shame that particularly in the enterprise space, and we've seen the same thing we saw in data science experimentation in the mid 2015 or so, is that we've seen these 6 to 9 month POCs that haven't gone anywhere, and things haven't gone into production. And not to name any of the big consultancies who are doing these things, but part of it is because these are done at enterprise level, and enterprise brings its own complications. At the SME level, we're able to be a lot more nimble and act more quickly, so we can get that ROI. We can do things in an afternoon, and we kind of have the key stakeholders in the room to say, actually, this is good enough. We can start using this tomorrow in a productionized way. Not necessarily, this isn't necessarily customer facing stuff. This isn't, sort of things that you're gonna, lose money on if it goes wrong. These are things that are just making people's lives better and making material difference. And that's one of the key kind of paradigm shifts that we've had, is just the ability to do things much more quickly. And the second is also we're able to use the AI to generate code in those sessions.
Sure.
So that's another key part that SMEs are really benefiting from.
Yeah, and I think as well, I think when we look at cost for SMEs, I know that obviously is a big thing to consider. Sometimes do you feel that maybe owners are thinking, right, looking at how much the big four cost to bring in a consult, do you think that sometimes there's that misconception of, everyone's charging the same as a big player? Or do you feel like, is there enough noise out there to say to everyone, look, there are cheaper and more efficient ways to do things as well?
I mean, just a slight plug. That is my business model, as being a fractional head of AI, right? So,
Yeah.
you can kind of get big four quality for, a couple days a month of my time, and I have my team that can follow behind. So I think there's definitely opportunities to take alternative approaches, and rather than try to hire big four or even kind of, smaller consultancies. There are just smart people in this space who, can automate things. I know one of my clients watches YouTube, and there's a guy on YouTube who automates kind of marketing processes. And he does YouTube videos, and you can reach out to that guy and say, can you automate this thing?
Yeah.
But one of the key parts is the actual cost of doing AI, on a per API call. So when you go and talk to the model, it's a few cents. And if you use an open source platform like DeFi or N8N, it's the time of putting it in, and then a few cents. So it's, the investment can be really low, particularly to get a POC off the ground. If you have the right stakeholders in the room and you're able to all say, let's do this thing.
Yeah, I'm going to ask this question. It's one that I know you're not going to be able to give a definitive answer on, but I think what a lot of business owners will be thinking about is, how much really is this going to cost? Now, is this going to be like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands? Is this, I know it depends on what you want to do. Is there a general message out there in terms of like, how to calculate the rough estimate on what's going to cost to roll this out?
Yeah. So kind of ballpark it. We can now be looking at doing automation with a couple, an industrial size automation with a couple people for a week. And you look at what kind of decent developers cost. There's kind of full stack engineers and front end engineers. but you can just build an automation with about 10 days of work to get something in production. So that's, I mean, that gives you kind of a rough cost estimate. One of the
Yeah.
challenges for these is kind of when you start to look at how users are going to interact with these essentially robots on a daily basis. You then get into the front end applications, what that interface looks like. You're essentially building these micro apps. Luckily, we're using anyone decent's using the AI to help generate those apps, doing 80% of the coding with the AI. So you should be able to something that would have taken 6 months in the past to develop a enterprise quality application should be done in 2 to 3 weeks.
That's crazy, isn't it? It's
So
crazy how
you probably want
far.
actual numbers here. So you should never be expecting to pay for a decent size application like that oil one I was talking about. 10,000 pounds should be more than enough to get something like that over the line.
Awesome. I love the accuracy on the numbers as well. Thank you for that. I think that's what probably everyone's on everyone live is right. How much, so thanks for that. So, and then, in terms of, perhaps opportunities that, are presented for SMEs, can we talk about some of the, unique challenges SMEs face in adopting AI but the opportunity they have for, ROI, return on investment?
So I'll take the second one first. I think the ROI increases the smaller your organization is. And the reason for that is you have people running manual processes and they've been given less support over the years. And that's the fact. One person's covering multiple jobs, and whereas in a large enterprise, you have 10 people doing one thing. And you'd actually think that you get a higher ROI at the enterprise level, but what you have is a lot of friction to make those automations happen. Whereas if you're just providing support for people doing smaller tasks and doing it fast and nimbly, you can actually get stuff into production. It's not a 6 to 9 month POC. It's not long drawn out solution architecture sessions. It's let's have a POC done today and let's be in production by Friday.
That's good news for SMEs. That's a real quick turnaround, isn't it?
And it should be more the way they've operated just generally. It's more akin to probably, and it should be, I think in 2025 should be the year where the citizen developer starts to become really well known. And this is where you have smart, technically minded, but not technical people. So not people that don't sit in IT, who can deliver automations and kind of applications without really a lot of support from engineers and developers. And no code, low code platforms is one key aspect of that. But the other key aspect is finding the people who are already doing this and have done it for years, but using a tool called Excel. And Excel has been the ultimate process automator and the biggest competitor of pretty much every software ever built. And if we can find the people who are good at building Excel, taking a complicated thing, I've got a spreadsheet and I take this other stuff and I do a VLOOKUP and all they're doing is they're automating, they're being a data engineer. Sometimes they're being a data scientist. Sometimes they're being a backend developer. Sometimes they're being a process automator. Let's find those people and give them a little bit of tooling, a little bit of training, and let them figure out, how to solve these problems. Don't even rely on people like me. Rely on people you already have.
I think that's a big point as well. Upskilling what the employees you have, gives them opportunity, gets the whole adoption of AI really, everyone's bought in because everyone's got a bit more responsibility, but then also they've left, the task they really hated. So I never thought we'd have this discussion on Excel specialists. I'm not even sure if we're allowed to mention Excel in the data world nowadays, but I think you've got a valid point.
I've been trying to replace Excel for 25 years and I have failed. I'm not saying that this will finally be the silver bullet that replaces Excel. Fundamentally, half of all business processes don't get into a system. And the smaller your organization, the more those processes don't get included in the enterprise app. So, depending on the size, you may not even have a CRM. Every enterprise of a certain size does eventually have a CRM, but it depends on your. So that means everything that would be done in the CRM, if you don't have one, is done in Excel. Almost everyone has a form of ERP, but the bigger you are, the more you've spent on customizing that, which means the fewer things have to be done in Excel. Still, probably 50% of large enterprises processes are done in Excel. But if you're on Microsoft Dynamics or a smaller, JD Edwards or a smaller ERP system, chances are you're still cobbling things together because it's just tough to and costly to change that configuration. So now is the opportunity to give some citizen developers proper tools, connect some data up using AI, and automate that stuff.
Yeah, I love that. It's good at loving the advice as well, Bryan. I guess how I'd like to kind of wrap up is perhaps the future trends, for AI and SMEs. What are we going to be seeing in 2025 and beyond?
So 2025 is going to have, I think, 3 key trends. And the first is, let's be totally honest, this is the year that people are going to start to lose their jobs to AI. It's been, in all my conversations with executives, and there have been quite a few over the last 2 years, we've danced around it. It's about freeing people up to do better things. We'll start to see ROI being generated, right or wrong, because people are going to be replaced by robots. So that's the acknowledgement that that's coming. It may not be for everyone, but that's the direction of travel, and we'll start to see it this year. The second is what I've already talked about, the rise of the citizen developer. We're going to have increasingly powerful and intuitive platforms to make AI a useful business tool. And whether you're on the Microsoft estate and using Microsoft Power Apps and other kind of Microsoft 365 automation tools, or whether you go kind of the open source route or even a paid route for an Agentic platform, that's the second key trend. And the third key trend is it's not going to happen this year or next, but we're going to start to see those big systems that pretty much everyone hates, those big ERPs, those big monolithic enterprise systems, start to become less relevant because we will start to have, used AI to build things that are better and more intuitive and more custom to how your business works. There's no need to customize an ERP system that doesn't quite give you what you want, and you still have to change your business process. If we can just build exactly what you need in a matter of a week or two, that not only solves the problem, but makes you not have to change a single thing about the way you work. So that's the trend that's coming. Check back in with me in about 3 years. We'll see how accurate that particular one is. But
Are you putting your hand up to come back on in 3 years, Bryan? I will have you back for sure. I mean, I think you've been excellent today. Thank you very much. I think we'll get you back before 3 years, though, if you don't mind, because things can change a bit quicker. You never know. So,
all right. Well, John, thanks for having me on.
You've been awesome. Thank you so much, Bryan. And I know you're a busy guy, so thanks for sparing all of your time for us. So, thanks very much.
All right. Thanks,
Bryan Johnson. Thank you very much. Cheers. Thanks for listening to another episode of AI Insights with me, Jonathan Blaber, heading up our AI recruitment practice at Eden Smith. If you'd like to find out more, please visit our website, find me on LinkedIn, or email me at jonathan.blaber@edensmith.co.uk. Thanks again for listening.